The ramen noodles were getting cold again. Third night this week, I'd let dinner turn into a soggy mess while staring at old photos on my phone. The tiny apartment felt smaller each evening, especially when I scrolled through pictures of what used to be our life. Victoria and me at the beach house we could no longer afford. Victoria and me at restaurants I couldn't dream of visiting now. Victoria laughing at something I'd said back when she still pretended my jokes were funny. My name is Jack Carver, and 6 months ago, I thought I knew my wife. The knock at the door came at exactly 9:30. I knew because I'd been watching the clock, counting down the minutes until I could justify going to bed and ending another spectacular day of freelance journalism that paid about as much as a teenager's allowance. When you've been laid off from the city's biggest newspaper, you learn to appreciate the small victories. Like finding someone willing to pay $50 for an article about local restaurant health inspections. No one visits me anymore. Not since Victoria moved out and took our social circle with her, like she was collecting party favors. So when I opened the door, I expected maybe Davy from downstairs, or possibly my sister Lana with another lecture about getting my life together. Instead, I found an envelope. Plain manila, no return address, my name written in block letters across the front. The hallway was empty, the sound of footsteps already fading down the stairwell. I locked the door and carried the envelope to my kitchen table, the one piece of furniture Victoria had deemed too shabby for her new place. Inside were photographs. Glossy, professional quality, the kind that cost real money to develop, the kind that made my stomach drop like I'd swallowed a brick. Victoria on a yacht, champagne glass raised in a toast. Victoria at what looked like a corporate party, her arm around a man in an expensive suit. Victoria at dinner in a restaurant I recognized from magazine reviews, the kind of place where appetizers cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Always with the same man, always smiling like she'd won the lottery, Sloane, her boss at the tech startup where she'd landed after leaving her old PR job. The same Sloane who'd been so understanding when Victoria needed time off to handle our separation, so supportive when she needed flexible hours to find a new apartment, so generous with the company credit card for client dinners. Apparently, very generous. The photos were dated, some from 3 months ago, when Victoria was still sleeping in our bed and telling me she needed space to figure things out. Others from last month, when she'd claimed she was working late on a big campaign. The most recent was from last week, the same night she'd called to say she couldn't make our dinner because of a family emergency. Family emergency. Right. I spread the pictures across my table like a poker hand, studying each one. Victoria wore clothes I'd never seen before, jewelry that definitely wasn't in our joint account purchase history. Her hair was different too, styled in a way that screamed expensive salon rather than the $20 cuts she used to get. The man beside her in every photo looked exactly like what he was: rich, confident, and completely unaware that anyone might question his right to take whatever he wanted. Sloane had the kind of face that had never heard the word no, at least not from anyone whose opinion mattered to him. My phone buzzed, text message from Victoria. Hope you're doing well, still thinking about what we discussed. What we'd discussed was her request for a quick, quiet separation. No lawyers, no drama, just two adults who'd grown apart and wanted to handle things maturely. She'd keep the condo her company was helping her afford. I'd keep the apartment and the debt from my failed freelance business. Clean and simple. Looking at the photos, I realized just how clean and simple it really was. I walked to my window and stared out at the city lights. 6 months ago, I'd been married to a woman I thought I knew, working at a job I loved, living in a house we'd bought together. Now, I was alone in a place that smelled like other people's cooking, eating discount noodles and watching my savings account shrink like ice in summer. Victoria had moved on. Moved up, actually. While I'd been drowning in self-pity and cheap carbohydrates, she'd been sampling champagne on yachts. The anonymous photographer had included a note tucked behind the last picture. Thought you should know. Some people get everything they want. I studied the handwriting, but it could have been anyone's. Someone who knew us both, obviously. Someone who thought I deserved to see what my wife had been doing while I honored our agreement to keep things quiet and civilized. Civilized. That was Victoria's favorite word during our separation talks. We needed to handle this in a civilized manner. Civilized people didn't air their private business in public. Civilized people didn't make scenes or cause embarrassment. I looked at the photos again. Victoria raising a toast on someone else's yacht. Victoria laughing at someone else's jokes. Victoria wearing someone else's gifts. My laptop was already open on the kitchen counter. It took me about 10 minutes to create anonymous accounts on 3 different social media platforms. Another 5 minutes to scan the photos and upload them with carefully chosen captions. Some people find love, others find luxury. Is that a crime? You tell me. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I tagged Victoria's personal accounts, her company's page, and Eric Sloane's very public business profile. Then I tagged every mutual friend we had, every colleague from her industry, every person who'd been invited to our wedding 3 years ago. The posts went live at exactly 10:15 p.m. By 10:30, my phone was ringing. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Victoria's voice cut through the phone like broken glass. In the background, I could hear other voices, urgent and overlapping. Her damage control team was already assembling. "Hello to you too," I said, settling back in my kitchen chair. "How was your evening?" "Mine was educational." "Take those pictures down right now, Jack. This is harassment." "Actually, it's journalism. I'm documenting the truth. Isn't that what you always said you admired about my work?" The line went quiet, except for muffled conversation on her end. Someone was giving her advice. Probably that shark Felicia Grant, her best friend and fellow PR specialist. Felicia had never liked me, probably because I could see through her carefully constructed social media personality to the calculating opportunist underneath. "Those photos were taken without permission," Victoria said finally. "This is invasion of privacy." "Whose privacy? You're in public places, public events. Nothing here looks particularly private to me. That yacht party looks pretty well attended." "You don't understand what you're interfering with." "Enlighten me." Another pause. More background voices. I could picture the scene. Victoria in her new luxury condo, probably wearing one of those outfits I'd never seen before, surrounded by her advisors trying to figure out how to spin this disaster. "Eric and I have a professional relationship," she said. "These photos are being taken out of context." "Professional relationship? Is that what we're calling it?" "Jack, listen to me very carefully. If you don't remove those posts immediately, you're going to face legal consequences: harassment, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Felicia's already contacted her lawyer." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Felicia's lawyer? The same Felicia who's been helping you craft your new image? Tell me, does she know about the credit card receipts?" Silence. "Oh yes, Victoria. I may be a failed journalist living in a studio apartment, but I still know how to research. Joint credit cards leave interesting paper trails, especially when someone's been using them for romantic dinners they're not having with their husband." "You're pathetic," she whispered. "Maybe, but I'm honest about it." She hung up. I checked my social media accounts. The posts were gaining traction faster than I'd expected. Comments were pouring in, shares multiplying. Our old friends were responding with everything from shocked emojis to supportive messages. Victoria's professional contacts were staying diplomatically silent, but their silence spoke volumes. The real entertainment was Eric Sloane's business page. His company's followers were asking pointed questions about executive conduct and corporate ethics. Someone had already dug up the company's employee handbook and was quoting sections about relationships between supervisors and subordinates. My phone buzzed with a text from Davy Morrison, my old college roommate who now ran a bar down by the harbor. "Dude, just saw your posts. You okay?" I texted back, "Never better. Drinks tomorrow?" "Hell yes. This is better than cable TV." 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. Unknown number. "Jack Carver?" "Speaking." "This is Eric Sloane. I think we need to talk." His voice was exactly what I'd expected. Smooth, confident, with the slight edge of someone used to getting his way through intimidation rather than violence. Rich guy threatening, not street guy threatening. "Do we? I can't imagine what we'd have to discuss." "You're making a mistake, a big one. Victoria told me about your situation, your financial problems, your career difficulties. I understand you're going through a tough time, but this isn't the way to handle it. What way would you recommend?" "Like an adult, like someone who wants to move forward instead of wallowing in the past." I could hear traffic in the background. He was driving, probably in something that cost more than I'd made in the past 2 years. "Here's what's going to happen," he continued. "You're going to take down those posts, delete those accounts, and disappear from Victoria's life. In return, I'm prepared to offer you a settlement, enough to get back on your feet, maybe relocate somewhere with better opportunities. You want to buy me off? I want to solve a problem efficiently. This situation benefits no one. Victoria's career is suffering, my company is dealing with unwanted attention, and you're making yourself look desperate and vindictive. Take the money, start over somewhere else, everyone wins." I walked to my window again, looking down at the street where people with normal problems were living normal lives. "How much?" $25,000. Cash. More than enough to relocate and establish yourself in a new market. "Interesting offer, but I have a counter-proposal." "I'm listening." "Go to hell." I hung up and immediately called Davy. "Change of plans," I said when he answered. "How about drinks tonight instead?" "It's almost 11 p.m. "Perfect. I have a story to tell you and I'm buying." Davy's bar, The Anchor, was exactly the kind of place Eric Sloane would never set foot in. Dim lighting, worn wooden floors, and clientele that worked with their hands for a living. It was also the unofficial information hub for half the city's blue-collar workforce, which meant Davy heard everything worth knowing and most things that weren't. I found him behind the bar, wiping down glasses with the methodical precision of someone who'd been doing the same job for 15 years and still took pride in it. "You look terrible," he said by way of greeting. "Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear." He poured 2 beers without asking what I wanted. "So, Victoria's been stepping out." "Victoria's been stepping up. Big difference." I showed him the photos on my phone, watching his expression shift from amusement to disgust. "Eric Sloane," he said, studying the pictures. "I know that name. His company's been in the news lately. Some kind of tech startup that's supposed to revolutionize social media marketing." "Revolutionize, right, by hiring other men's wives and showering them with company perks." "You sure about this, Jack? Once you start down this road, there's no going back. Victoria's not going to forgive and forget." I took a long drink of beer, feeling the first alcohol I'd had in weeks burn slightly on the way down. "Davy, 6 months ago I had a wife, a career, and a future. Now I have a studio apartment and a ramen noodle addiction. Victoria's moved on to champagne and yachts, while I've been honoring our agreement to keep things quiet and civilized. Tell me, what exactly am I supposed to be going back to?" He nodded slowly. "Fair point. So what's the plan?" "I don't know yet, but I'm done being civilized." The next morning brought consequences. My phone started ringing at 7 a.m. with calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Reporters, apparently. My little social media exposé had caught the attention of the city's gossip bloggers and entertainment journalists. I let them all go to voicemail. The messages were interesting. 3 interview requests, 2 offers to buy exclusive rights to my story, and 1 threat of legal action from someone claiming to represent Eric Sloane's company. That last one made me smile. Victoria had tried calling 6 times. I didn't answer those either. Instead, I made coffee and started researching. If I was going to war with people who had money and influence, I needed ammunition. Fortunately, investigative journalism had taught me how to dig up information most people preferred to keep buried. Eric Sloane's company, Pinnacle Social Solutions, had been making aggressive moves in the local market for the past year. They'd poached talent from established firms, undercut competitors on major contracts, and somehow managed to land several high-profile clients despite being relatively new. Their employee reviews on job sites were interesting reading. Complaints about favoritism, inappropriate relationships between management and staff, and a corporate culture that rewarded personal loyalty over professional competence. Several former employees mentioned concerns about expense account abuse and questionable business practices. One review posted 3 months ago caught my attention. Management plays favorites in ways that would make HR nervous if HR wasn't afraid of management. If you're young, attractive, and willing to blur professional boundaries, you'll do great here. If you actually want to do marketing work, look elsewhere. I screenshot everything. My laptop chimed with a new email. The sender was listed as F. Grant, which meant Felicia had decided to contact me directly. Jack, we need to talk. This situation is spiraling out of control and hurting people who don't deserve it. Victoria made mistakes, but she doesn't deserve to have her career destroyed over a personal matter. Meet me for coffee this afternoon. Felicia. I replied, happy to chat. Bring Victoria, and bring Eric if he's available. I'm sure we'll have lots to discuss. Her response came back in under a minute. This isn't a joke, Jack. Serious people are involved now. Lawyers, corporate executives, people who don't appreciate being embarrassed in public. Fix this before it gets worse. Define worse, I wrote back. She didn't reply. I spent the rest of the morning calling in favors from my old journalism contacts. Most of the newspaper staff had been laid off along with me, but a few had landed at smaller publications or moved into freelance work. They were happy to help dig into Pinnacle Social Solutions, especially when I mentioned the potential for a story about corporate misconduct and employee exploitation. By noon, I had enough information to ruin Eric Sloane's week. Pinnacle had been investigated by the State Labor Department 6 months ago following complaints about unpaid overtime and misclassified employees. The investigation had been quietly dropped after the company hired an expensive law firm and made some strategic campaign contributions. 3 former female employees had filed complaints with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, alleging workplace harassment and discrimination. Those complaints had also disappeared after confidential settlements. The company's financial records, the public portions anyway, showed some interesting patterns. Expense accounts that seemed unusually large for a startup. Corporate credit card charges at high-end restaurants, luxury hotels, and yacht clubs. Travel expenses that didn't correspond to any business trips mentioned in their press releases. I was putting together a timeline when my phone rang. Lana, my sister. Jack, what the hell are you doing? Good morning to you too, sis. I just got off the phone with Victoria. She's talking about restraining orders and harassment charges. She says you've lost your mind. Lana was a lawyer, the successful one in the family. She'd built a practice representing small businesses and had exactly 0 patience for what she called emotional decision-making. She also had a protective streak that had gotten both of us in trouble when we were kids. Victoria's been having an affair with her boss while we were separated, I said. I made that information public. Everything I posted was true. Truth isn't a defense against harassment charges. It's not harassment to document someone's public behavior. Jack? Her voice shifted into lawyer mode. Listen to me carefully. I understand you're hurt and angry. You have every right to be. But you're playing with fire here. These people have resources you don't have. They can make your life very difficult. More difficult than it already is? She sighed. Yes, much more difficult. Criminal charges difficult. Bankruptcy from legal fees difficult. Unemployable because of a harassment conviction difficult. I walked to my window, looking down at the street where normal people were going about their normal lives. So what do you recommend? Apologize, take down the posts, and pretend it never happened? I recommend you think about what you actually want to accomplish here. Do you want Victoria back? Because this isn't how you get someone back. Do you want revenge? Because revenge has a way of backfiring on people who can't afford good lawyers. Maybe I just want the truth to be known. The truth is known. Your posts have been shared hundreds of times. Everyone who cares already knows what happened. The question is, what happens next? Before I could answer, my call waiting beeped. Unknown number. Lana, I need to take this. Jack, don't do anything stupid. I switched calls. Jack Carver. Mr. Carver, this is Detective Martinez with the city police. I'd like to speak with you about some online posts you've made recently. Would you be available to come in for a conversation this afternoon? My stomach dropped. Am I being charged with something? Not at this time. We've received complaints about potential harassment and cyberstalking. I'd like to get your side of the story before this goes any further. I'll need to bring my lawyer. That's your right. Can you be here at 3 p.m.? After I hung up, I called Lana back. They're bringing in the police, I said. Of course they are. That's what people with money do when they want to scare people without money. Will you represent me? Jack, I practice business law, not criminal defense. But yes, I'll come with you. And then we're going to have a serious conversation about how this ends. The police interview was exactly what I'd expected. A fishing expedition designed to intimidate me into backing down. Detective Martinez was professional but clearly going through the motions. He asked about my posts, whether I'd made any direct threats, whether I'd attempted to contact Victoria or Eric outside of social media. I answered honestly. No threats, no contact, just public documentation of public behavior. Mr. Carver, he said finally, I'm not seeing anything here that rises to the level of criminal harassment, but I want to give you some advice. This situation is escalating. People are angry, lawyers are involved, and angry people with lawyers sometimes make poor decisions. It might be in everyone's best interest if you stepped back from social media for a while. Are you asking me to stop posting or ordering me? I'm suggesting that discretion might be the better part of valor here. Lana and I left the police station with no charges filed, but the message had been received. Victoria and Eric were playing hardball. They're trying to scare you into silence, Lana said as we walked to her car. It's working. Good. Maybe now you'll listen to reason. But as we drove through downtown, passing the gleaming office building where Eric's company was located, I realized I wasn't scared. I was angry. The kind of cold, focused anger that comes when you understand exactly how the game is being played. Drop me off at Davy's bar, I said. Jack, no. Whatever you're thinking, no. I'm thinking I need a drink and some advice from someone who's not a lawyer. She pulled over 3 blocks from the Anchor. Promise me you won't do anything that gets you arrested. I promise I won't do anything that gets me convicted. That's not the same thing. I know. Davy was setting up for the evening crowd when I walked in. He took one look at my face and poured 2 whiskeys without being asked. Police interview? He asked. How did you know? You've got that look people get when they realize the system isn't designed to help them. I filled him in on the morning's events while he continued his setup routine. Davy had been a cop for 5 years before buying the bar, so he understood how intimidation tactics worked. They're hoping you'll fold, he said. Rich guys like this, they're used to problems going away when they apply the right pressure. What if I don't fold? Then things get interesting. He finished arranging bottles and turned to face me directly. Jack, I'm going to ask you something, and I want a straight answer. How far are you willing to take this? What do you mean? I mean, are you looking to make a point, or are you looking to win? Because those are 2 different games with 2 different sets of rules. I thought about Victoria in her luxury condo, wearing clothes I'd never seen before. I thought about Eric Sloane offering to buy me off like I was a minor inconvenience. I thought about the police interview, the legal threats, the assumption that I would just disappear if they applied enough pressure. I want to win. Davy nodded slowly. Then we need to change tactics. What you've done so far is amateur hour. Posting photos, making accusations. That's just noise. If you want to actually hurt these people, you need to hit them where it matters. Which is where? Their money, their reputation with people who matter, their sense of control. He walked to the bar's old computer and pulled up Eric Sloane's company website. Look at this, he said, pointing to the client list. Half the biggest companies in the city. You think they're going to keep doing business with a firm that's getting negative attention for executive misconduct? Probably not. Definitely not. Corporate clients hate scandal. It makes them nervous about their own reputations. I studied the screen. Pinnacle Social Solutions had contracts with the city's largest bank, 3 major retail chains, and the tourism board. All organizations that depended on public trust and positive image. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that your social media posts were just the opening move. Now you need to follow up with something that actually threatens their business. Like what? Davy smiled, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I felt like I might actually have a chance. Like a comprehensive investigation into Pinnacle's business practices. Employee complaints, financial irregularities, potential legal violations. The kind of story that makes corporate clients very nervous about their association with the company. I'm not a reporter anymore. No, but you know how to investigate. And you know people who are still in the business. He was right. I'd spent the morning gathering information, but I'd been thinking like someone trying to embarrass his ex-wife, not like someone trying to destroy a business. This could take weeks. Good. Gives you time to do it right, and gives them time to worry about what you might find. I finished my whiskey and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Davy, if I do this, there's no going back. Victoria will never forgive me. Jack, she's already gone. The question is whether you're going to let her take your dignity with her. That night, I started making phone calls. 3 weeks later, I had enough material to end Eric Sloane's career. The investigation had taken on a life of its own. What started as personal revenge had evolved into legitimate journalism, the kind of story that wins awards and ruins lives. My old contacts had been eager to help once they understood the scope of what we were uncovering. Pinnacle Social Solutions wasn't just guilty of workplace impropriety. They were running what amounted to a sophisticated scam, using their client relationships to funnel money into personal accounts, manipulating social media campaigns to benefit Eric's other business interests, and systematically discriminating against employees who wouldn't participate in their corrupt culture. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records showing suspicious transfers, email chains discussing illegal activities, recorded conversations with former employees detailing harassment and intimidation, financial documents proving that company funds had been used for personal expenses, including Eric's yacht and Victoria's luxury condo. I'd also discovered something that made the whole situation even more satisfying. Victoria wasn't Eric's first affair with a subordinate. She was just the most recent in a pattern that went back 3 years. The other women had been quietly paid off and transferred to other companies, but they were willing to talk now that someone was finally asking the right questions. The story was ready to publish. I had offers from 2 major newspapers and 3 online publications. The payday would be enough to get me back on my feet financially, and the byline would resurrect my journalism career. But first, I wanted to give Victoria and Eric a chance to respond. I sent them both the same email. I'm publishing a comprehensive investigation into Pinnacle Social Solutions tomorrow morning. If you'd like to provide a statement or response, please contact me by 6 p.m. today. Victoria called within an hour. Jack, please, we need to talk. Her voice was different, smaller. The confidence was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost like fear. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Can we meet? Just you and me, like civilized people. There was that word again. Civilized. Where? The coffee shop on 5th Street, the one where we used to go on Sunday mornings. I knew the place. It was where we'd had our first date, where I'd proposed, where we'd spent countless weekend mornings reading newspapers and planning our future together. She was trying to manipulate me with nostalgia. 1 hour, I said. Victoria was already there when I arrived, sitting at our old table by the window. She looked tired in a way that expensive makeup couldn't quite hide. The designer clothes were still there, but they seemed to hang differently on her now, like costumes that no longer fit properly. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. You have something to say. Say it. She stared into her coffee cup for a long moment before speaking. I know you hate me. I know you think I'm a terrible person who destroyed our marriage for money and status. And maybe you're right. Maybe that's exactly what I am. Is this supposed to be an apology? It's supposed to be an explanation. She looked up at me, and I saw something I hadn't expected. Genuine regret. When I lost my job last year, when money got tight and you got laid off, I felt like I was drowning, like everything we'd worked for was disappearing. So you decided to find someone who could pay the bills. I decided to survive. Eric offered me a job when no one else would. He offered stability when everything else was falling apart. And all you had to do was sleep with him. She flinched. It wasn't like that, not at first. What was it like? It was like being rescued. Someone who saw value in me when I couldn't see it in myself. Someone who could offer the kind of life I'd always wanted but never thought I could have. I studied her face, looking for signs of the woman I'd married. She was still there, underneath the new hair and expensive clothes, but changed in ways that went deeper than appearance. What do you want, Victoria? I want you to shut the story down. Why would I do that? Because it will destroy innocent people. Eric's company employs 47 people. If Pinnacle goes under, they all lose their jobs. Because some of the things you've uncovered aren't illegal, just embarrassing, and people deserve privacy, because revenge isn't justice. And what do I get in return? She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. $50,000. Cash. Enough to start over anywhere you want. I didn't touch the envelope. Eric's money? Mine, from my signing bonus and salary. Money you earned by sleeping with your boss? Money I earned by doing my job well. We sat in silence for several minutes. The coffee shop was busy with the afternoon crowd, people living normal lives and dealing with normal problems. I envied them. Victoria, do you remember what you said when we got married? About being partners? About facing everything together? Yes. Where was that partnership when I lost my job? Where was that togetherness when money got tight? I was scared, Jack. I made bad decisions because I was scared of being poor. So you left me to be poor alone while you moved on to champagne and yachts. She started crying then, quietly, the kind of tears that smear expensive makeup. I know I hurt you. I know I broke promises and betrayed your trust. But please, don't let your anger destroy other people's lives. I looked at the envelope on the table between us. $50,000. More money than I'd seen in 2 years. Enough to disappear, start over, pretend none of this had ever happened. Victoria, there's something you need to understand. This stopped being about you weeks ago. What I found at Pinnacle, the pattern of abuse and corruption, that's bigger than our marriage. People deserve to know what kind of company they're working for, what kind of man Eric Sloane really is. So you won't take the money? I picked up the envelope and handed it back to her. I can't be bought. Unlike some people. She took the envelope with shaking hands. Then I'm sorry for what happens next. What happens next? But she was already standing, already walking away, already making a phone call before she reached the door. I sat alone at our old table, watching through the window as Victoria got into a car I'd never seen before. Eric Sloane was behind the wheel. They'd played their last card, and I'd called their bluff. Tomorrow the story would run, and everything would change. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. The story broke at 6 a.m. across 4 different publications simultaneously. By 7, it was trending on social media. By 8, Eric Sloane's company phone was going straight to voicemail. I watched the coverage from Davy's bar, nursing coffee and monitoring the internet as my investigation spread across news sites, blogs, and social media platforms. The response was everything I'd hoped for and more. Pinnacle's clients started distancing themselves immediately. The tourism board issued a statement about reviewing all vendor relationships. The major bank announced they were conducting an internal audit of their marketing contracts. 3 retail chains quietly removed Pinnacle's logo from their websites. Local news stations picked up the story, sending reporters to Eric's office building and Victoria's condo. Neither was available for comment, but their lawyers were busy issuing statements about defamation and invasion of privacy. My phone rang constantly. Interview requests, job offers, congratulations from old colleagues who'd seen their own careers destroyed by corporate malfeasance. For the first time in months, I felt like a journalist again, instead of a victim. The best part was watching the social media response. Eric's business accounts were flooded with comments from former employees, sharing their own stories of misconduct and abuse. Victoria's personal profiles, the ones where she'd carefully crafted an image of professional success and personal happiness, were overwhelmed with questions about her relationship with her boss and her role in the company's corrupt practices. But the real satisfaction came at 11 a.m., when Davy answered his bar phone and handed it to me with a grin. "Jack Carver. This is Eric Sloane. We need to meet." His voice was different now. The smooth confidence was gone, replaced by barely controlled desperation. "Do we? You've made your point. You've gotten your revenge. Now let's talk about how this ends." "I'm listening." "Marina Park, Pier 7, 1 hour. Come alone." Davy raised an eyebrow. "You going?" "Wouldn't miss it." "Want backup?" "Not necessary. He's not dangerous, just desperate." "Desperate people do stupid things. So do angry people, but angry people with evidence do smart things." Marina Park was where the city's wealthy kept their boats, a collection of yachts and sailing vessels that cost more than most people's houses. Eric's boat was easy to spot, the largest one in the marina, with a name painted across the stern in gold letters, Pinnacle. Subtle. Eric was waiting on the dock, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. Up close, he looked like he'd aged 5 years in the past month. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his usually perfect hair was disheveled, and his eyes had the wild look of someone who'd realized their world was collapsing. "You son of a—" he started, then caught himself. "You have no idea what you've done." "I've exposed a corrupt business and the people who run it. Seems pretty straightforward. You've destroyed 47 jobs. You've ruined people who had nothing to do with your personal problems. People who were working for a company built on fraud and harassment. They're better off somewhere else." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Better off? You think any of them are going to thank you when they're unemployed? You think Victoria's going to be grateful when she can't find work in this city because of your vendetta? Victoria made her choices. So did you. We fell in love. That's not a crime. Love." I looked at his yacht, at his expensive clothes, at the marina full of toys that cost more than most people made in a decade. "Is that what you call it?" "What would you call it?" "A transaction. She needed money and status. You needed a young woman to make you feel powerful. Very romantic." His face flushed red. "You don't know anything about our relationship. I know she was married when it started. I know you used company funds to pay for your dates. I know she wasn't the first employee you've had an affair with. Those other situations were different. How? They were mistakes. Victoria is real. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. He actually believed what he was saying. In his mind, he was the hero of a love story, not the villain of a corruption scandal. Eric, let me explain something to you. Victoria didn't leave me for love. She left me for money. The same money she'll leave you for when someone richer comes along. You're wrong. Am I? When this story finishes destroying your company, when the lawsuits start, when your assets get frozen and your reputation is ruined, do you think she's going to stick around? Do you think she's going to be interested in a relationship that doesn't come with yachts and luxury condos? His expression shifted, and I saw the first crack in his certainty. She loves me, he said, but his voice was smaller now. She loves what you can provide. There's a difference. We stood in silence for several minutes, watching boats rock gently in the harbor. Normal people enjoying normal pleasures they'd earned through normal work. What do you want? He asked finally. I want you to understand something. This isn't about revenge anymore. This is about consequences. You built a company on corruption and abuse. You used your position to exploit employees and defraud clients. You destroyed other people's lives because you could, because you thought your money and influence made you untouchable. And now you're destroying mine. No. I'm just making sure everyone knows what you really are. He turned to face me directly, and I saw something dangerous in his eyes. You think you've won? You think this is over? I think justice has been served. Justice. He spat the word like it tasted bad. You want to know about justice? Justice is what happens to people who cross the wrong people. Justice is what happens when you don't have money for lawyers and influential friends. Is that a threat? It's a promise. But even as he said it, I could see the defeat in his posture. Eric Sloane was used to intimidating people with his wealth and connections. Without those advantages, he was just another middle-aged man facing the consequences of his choices. I walked away without another word, leaving him standing alone on the dock beside his yacht, watching his empire crumble in real time. The story continued to spread throughout the day. By evening, Pinnacle Social Solutions had lost 6 major clients and faced 3 separate investigations by state agencies. Eric had disappeared, probably to consult with expensive lawyers about damage control. Victoria called one last time as I was having dinner at Davy's bar. Are you satisfied? She asked. I'm satisfied that the truth is known. The truth. She laughed bitterly. The truth is that you destroyed everything because you couldn't accept that I'd moved on. The truth is that you moved on to a relationship built on corruption and fraud. The truth is that you chose money over integrity. And what did your integrity get you, Jack? You're still alone, still struggling, still living in that tiny apartment. The only difference is, now everyone knows your business. She was right, of course. My life hadn't magically improved because I'd exposed her affair and Eric's crimes. I was still unemployed, still divorced, still facing an uncertain future. But I was no longer a victim. Victoria, do you remember what I said in my wedding vows? About being the kind of man you could be proud of? Yes, I'm that man again, finally. Congratulations, she said. I hope it keeps you warm at night. I finished my dinner and walked home through the city streets, past the office buildings where honest people did honest work, past the restaurants where normal couples shared normal meals, past the life I'd once thought I wanted. My apartment was still small, still shabby, still lonely, but it was mine, and I'd earned the right to live in it with my dignity intact. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The next morning brought job offers from 3 newspapers and 2 magazines. My phone rang with opportunities, interviews, and congratulations from colleagues who'd thought my career was over. Eric Sloane's company declared bankruptcy within a week. He was facing multiple lawsuits and criminal investigations. His yacht was seized by federal agents as part of a fraud investigation. Victoria disappeared from social media entirely. According to mutual friends, she'd moved back in with her parents while looking for work in another city. Her relationship with Eric had ended the day his assets were frozen. I never saw either of them again. But sometimes, when I'm working late on a story that matters, when I'm investigating people who think their money and influence make them untouchable, I remember the lesson I learned that year. Everyone has a price, but not everyone is for sale. Some things, like dignity and truth, can't be bought, and some people like me finally learned that the hard way.